Yes.
Okay, I will now call this June 15, 2023 special open work session of the budget to order at 6:35 p.m. Can I get an approval of the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Thank you, Brandy. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Rachel. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 2.01, budget work session for FY24.
Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Chris Holzer. I'm Chief Financial Officer here at the school district, and I'm going to present to you the final version of our fiscal 2024 budget. Since February, you've been seeing pieces of this trickled out so that this is a digestible portion once we get to this budget workshop. Otherwise, we'd be here for like 3 hours, and nobody wants that. So jumping right in, property taxes are the largest source of revenue for the district. Local sources make up the rest of the bulk of those funds. The projected tax rate is, as on the screen here, 3.4187 residential, 3.5290 on the commercial, and 5.4658 on personal property. So our growth is limited to 5% based on the Hancock II amendment. As we all know, CPI has increased greatly over the last couple of years, and we're 6.5 is the number we're based on, so 5% is the number we use. Also, this is a reassessment year, and as such, the assessments, at least on the residential side, indicate growth of just north of 20%. So our revenue is limited, but the revenue that we are able to achieve based on the reassessment, 16.2 of that will be distributed to operations, 6.1 to debt service, and $554,000 to capital projects. We typically take a dime of the tax levy and dedicate it to capital projects so that we don't have to transfer as much. There's DESI rules on transfers, so this helps us out in that regard. The state formula, luckily, we are able to use more years than we typically would instead of the prior two. And the state has recognized that COVID, the pandemic, still continues to loom over us regarding student attendance. So because of that, school districts have been pleading all year, and they have agreed to one more year extend us using the prior 3 years, so the best of, and that will work in our favor. So modest gains on the sales tax, which is that 1% tax on sales tax that allocation that we get. So 1.8 million there. Our title funding, we're figuring to be about 215,000 for titles 1, 2, and 4. It's worth noting while we're here, federal funding, you'll see here, has declined about $199,000 over the prior year. We've now depleted all of the COVID relief funds. We've done that final drawdown. Expect that on the June disbursement. So that will be the last of those funds that are available to us. So we've been experiencing those, you can see, since 22 there. And numbers are normalizing now, so we have to deal with that. So on the local sources, $28.7 million, county sources, $405, state sources, $2.5, federal, $818,000, all in total, and $40,000 from other LEAs, for a grand total across all funds of $32,530,322 projected. This is just a graphic representation of the ebbs and the flows of our various revenue streams. And here's how those are allocated. 86.4 of those local sources. County is too small to show up on this particular pie chart. And state is just under 10%. Given year to year, it ranges anywhere from 8 to 10%. So some of those fluctuations with the state we're somewhat insulated from just due to that lower percentage. However, I wouldn't hate it if they gave us more. I added this slide just so that you can see, I won't rattle off all these numbers to you, you can see them, and they're in your presentation there. The distribution across all funds. Often when I present these to you, I present just the operating budgets. There's a lot more to it than that. There's the debt service, and then there's the capital projects, which is further complicated by the Prop E funds, as well as the 2023 COPS funds that we acquired back in February. So this is the distribution of those funds across all of those funds.
And Chris, can you remind our new board members what the COPS funds are?
Sure. It's a debt instrument that allows us to borrow money based on our assets here at the district. So it's essentially we lease a portion of one of our buildings, and then we lease it back from the investor. It's sort of an interesting debt instrument. But those are funds that we borrowed in order to acquire the new building and also renovate and any excesses that we experience as a result of this project going on out behind us. Okay, on to the expenses. Salaries and benefits, we're figuring those to raise 10 and 8% respectively. That's largely due to the increases to the teacher salary schedule, adding 7% to the base on master's through PhD, and then 5% to bachelor's. Also, the 2.75% step. We think that's an important step, even though it is a noticeable change to the fund balance here. We have to not only attract, but retain our talented staff. And we had dropped significantly in our rankings across the county, across the region. Other folks had been moving forward while we had stalled. So we had some ground to make up, and we're taking a big leap into fiscal 24, and we'll take the next leap in 25. We've also added we created a salary schedule for all of our support staff, which is the first time that I'm aware of that we've ever done that. So that does a couple of things. It places limits on the amount of wage or salary on those, just like it does on teachers, the teacher salary schedule. It also puts structure so that not only us as a district can plan, but the employee can plan and strategize. Now they have in front of them the entire menu of positions that are available. And I would expect that in the coming years, we would have some that have their eye on a different channel, a different position that would net them perhaps a greater wage. So benefits, the medical benefits is another huge expense of ours. We expect those premiums to increase 7.5%. CBTF did recommend adding an additional plan to our plan offerings. So that'll come online in October. We'll talk more about that in subsequent meetings. But we hope that by adding that plan, we'll add flexibility for our teachers and their families, as well as because of the structure of that plan, perhaps we will see some savings on our benefits ratios.
Chris, this is a little bit off topic, but not. I know a few years back we started doing more of a one-pager on, your entire package is, your salary and your benefits, sort of thing. As far as CBTF is concerned and the conversations, I know there's multiple folks who participate in CBTF. Are we commensurate with other districts around how much of the benefits the district is carrying versus? We
are, yeah. It's pretty standard. One thing that does vary is the price of the premiums.
Yeah.
And that varies based on the tier that we're on in the CSD Insurance Trust. We have had a good year, so we were able to lower ourselves into Tier 4, which is fantastic. And so instead of a 13% increase, we get the 7.5. So other districts, depending on the plans that they offer and the ones that the board chooses to pay for, those medical benefit rates all scale to that. So there are a number of school districts that make different choices on the plan offerings, but right now we have what we have.
Right. Okay.
It's also worth noting while we're on benefits that medical benefits as well as dental all contribute to your retirement salary. So teachers in the PSRS retirement system are 14.5% of their check goes toward their retirement, then we contribute in kind 14.5%. That number, that 14.5%, is based on their salary plus their benefits. So it's a larger number. So we can expect benefits to increase as both medical and medical premiums increase as well. Purchase services are down largely due to a reduction in substitute teacher costs, projected reduction in substitute teacher costs, now that the pandemic is mostly behind us. I think we're calling it something different than a pandemic now, so I'll just say the COVID. And then contracted bus routes. You know that driver shortages over the last couple of years, we are upwards of $300,000 in those 2 years of contracted routes just to get our kids to and from school. Dr. Dietrich has taken enormous strides to, I think, all but fill our bus driver positions, along with the new tiering that they'll do with the bus routes next year. We won't need to use the contracted service, except in the very rare instance where we have an emergency and we just need somebody. Supplies budgets are right around where they have been at $2 million. If you care to know, in the budget book, you'll see about a 1% increase on that, which is less than I had projected in the prior year. Capital projects, we are up about $455,000, excuse me, which is higher. We've been stalling some of our capital projects due to the Prop E. We do have some important things that we need to take care of, not the least of which is our gym roof over here on the middle school, high school. We've been stalling on that. It's an expensive roof to replace, and to the tune of about $375,000. But the damages that we would incur if it's not replaced are worse than that. So this is a worthwhile expense. It's not pretty, but it's necessary. So just to go through the capital projects, we'll patch the drive lane. It's cheaper to fix your asphalt rather than let it crumble to nothing and then have to completely replace it. So we'll do some maintenance on that. We'll update some access controls for our teachers on the back lot of the elementary. We're going to try and get a bottle filler on 3R, which is the new middle school wing here. They don't have access to a fountain, so we'd like to do that. I'm hoping that we can find something to plug that into. Here's the gym roof restoration. Heat pumps are aging and in need of replace. Our strategy now is to catch them as they fail, which is a perfectly viable strategy. It's the one that we're employing right now. So that's what we're anticipating in replacements. And then our stage is also showing signs of wear and age, so we need to spend some money in there. They're really little numbers, so I apologize if you're out in the crowd there. They are available online if you'd like to look at them a little bit closer. But this shows that our expenditures are $38.8 million. That is across all funds, inclusive of debt service, and also the construction projects. So we still have about $4.8 million. Plus $1.5 million. So there's quite a bit of those funds mixed into this pot. Here's how our expenses are distributed. You'll hear us say 70 to 75% of our operations budgets go towards salaries. Well, you see a 41% and 13.5% for salaries and benefits. This is all funds inclusive. So this also has debt and capital. So the numbers are a little bit skewed. All right, so here is almost the bottom line. We are projecting about a 34.3% fund balance as a percentage of expenditures for the coming year. We had targets for those next 2 years, and as of right now, we've met those targets. I feel pretty good about where we're at on the operations side. Debt service is solid, no problems there, and we'll have just enough to get through these construction projects. So we do have a couple things to do. I was editing the document up to about 10 minutes before I got here today. That will continue until the 29th. If there's any changes that make anything move drastically, I will note you between now and then. Otherwise, I'll just include them in a very quick presentation on the 29th.
Okay.
Any questions?
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, I appreciate you making this so clear.
No problem. My pleasure.
Can I get a motion to adjourn our special work session?
So moved. Second.
Thank you, Brandy. Thank you, Rachel. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Meeting adjourned at 6:49 p.m. We will reconvene at 7 p.m. for our regular monthly meeting. If you are here for public comment and signed up in advance, please initial If you have not signed up, the sign-up sheet is here on the table behind us.
We still have to see this, so please feel welcome to come around